It don't look like James Harden is going anywhere.
It does not. My understanding is like they've tried to be in talks with like the Nets and with uh
The Sixers
the
too.
Sixers. Yeah. Um, but like they're not. So how do I put this? Um, in the bluntest way possible, the Rockets aren't satisfied with effectively gutting the depth of the Nets. Um, but the Nets also aren't willing to move Kyrie Irving. Not that the Rockets are necessarily interested.
Yeah.
Um, and like the the Rockets want Simmons for like I guess in any case, like they want Simmons and Pitt to move to for the Sixers to get Harden, but like the Sixers aren't interested. Like
Yeah. You mean to tell me you're not coming up off none of your stars for Harden? Yeah, baby, you don't want this. I do think like the funniest part about this situation may be, yeah, good.
uh,
Where are
I
you?
can't.
You missed it.
Oh,
You talking about basketball now?
oh, I missed the post or the pre debrief. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was up there coaching basketball, coaching the youth.
You good, bro? I figured.
pretty good.
Uh, but it is hilarious to hear that Sixers aren't trying to come up off any of their like star players, and the Nets were like, "We're not even gonna talk to you about KD."
Talking about the trade from the Rockets.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like
with
don't
them
even
trying to
look at
move Harden.
Yeah. Okay.
it's like
Could you
don't
imagine Harden in Philadelphia though? Like that
even,
town, like, that's like a blue collar, city. Like they like people who are they're rugged and hard, and you work hard on defense, and just people who are the quintessential like everyday working hard individuals, like their biggest uh, favorites for their sports teams. And Harden is not that. Like he is the opposite of that. He plays basketball the opposite of that. Can he play basketball that way? Maybe, but he hasn't shown us that since OKC, possibly. So
I
I,
mean,
I
he locked up on it in that OKC series to close out. Got that little block.
2012.
No, like
This was a
Oh,
month
you
ago.
mean this
the
past year?
playoffs, the bubble.
I'm
Yeah,
tripping. I'm tripping. Uh, my bad. You're right. He did play good defense for one possession. Like, come on now. But he's I don't know. In Philadelphia, I mean, I personally would never make any trade. If I was Philadelphia, I wouldn't trade anybody for him because our team is younger and they have at least some kind of identity, right?
yeah.
Um, he would come in and like automatically shift everything, which and I'm not necessarily sure in a good way. Granted, I'm a James Harden fan. I don't see that as being a fit. And um, in the Nets, if that were to ever be a possibility, there's only one basketball. Like that wouldn't work. Like there's only one basketball, and they have two all-time great scorers if James Harden were to go there, and James Harden and KD, and Kyrie, who is a Harlem Globetrotter in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like he just like I'm not sure if that would actually work though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because there's too many similarities in their game. Two people, okay, that could work, but three, no. And also, there's no way that they would ever get. Uh, there's no way that they would ever get James Harden without giving up KD or Kyrie. Granted, I would give up Kyrie for James Harden, but
Heartbeat.
I'm not sure. But like, I'm not sure anybody else would. Because James Harden has a stigma about him, but like Kyrie should have a similar stigma. Kyrie's stigma should be worse. But the only reason it's not worse is because he had that one season with LeBron James and won a championship. Like, or no, more than one season, but he won that championship season. That's the only reason he doesn't have a stigma. Because every other time Kyrie's like been a leader on a team, whatever, they don't do well, like at all. So he should have a worse stigma than James Harden, but for some reason he doesn't. Uh, so like, no one would make that trade. But also like you don't know what Kyrie would do because he's kind of like off his rocker. Uh,
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
okay, my
One thing at
bad.
a
I
time.
jumped the
Yeah.
gun, but I don't know how deep you guys are into this. But But so I
we
would
kind
make
of
that
just.
trade, but or I would make a trade, but I'm not sure if anybody else would.
But
Yeah.
to catch you up a little bit, some of the stuff we were talking about is that for example, with talks with the Nets, they of course don't want to come up off Kyrie. I'm assuming they're not even discussing KD because that would be dumb. Um, but like the Rockets don't want the Nets young players for real. Like they don't want like Levert and Allen and Dinwiddie and whatever. And like that's basic. If you're the Nets, that's basically what you have to give them in like draft picks.
Yeah.
Um,
Why doesn't Houston just blow it up at this point?
Is the Rockets organization so bad? Like, granted, there's been like some whispers, right? But like, is their organization overall so bad that James Harden doesn't want to play with John Wall? Like, John Wall's a really good player, so like it's interesting. And I thought like on a personal level, they seem like they would get along. So it's interesting that like James Harden's like, no, whatever. Like, granted, I'm all about not loyalty to, or I am now, but I'm all about like not loyalty to like a specific team because like the teams are never gonna be loyal to you at the end of the day unless you're Mark Cuban with JJ Barea. But but it's interesting that James Harden, like I don't know, I just assumed it would fit like automatically on a personal level, a basketball level, but he's just like, nah, I'm done. So I guess there's like things about the organization that we just don't know.
Yeah.
my some of my limited understanding, at least like from like looking at some things here and there, is like one of the like perceptions with it is just kind of like the thing is like Harden had like a lot of input into the situation. Granted, what I will grant is that like again, my understanding is that for various reasons, his entire time there and before he got there, they've never gone over the luxury. Like they've never gone over the salary cap. They never paid luxury. They paid luxury. Since Morey got there, I think they paid luxury tax twice. I think.
Mm.
Um, but like my understanding is like Harden had input into like getting Westbrook and Chris Paul,
Yeah.
whatever, and then like get to the point like he doesn't want to play with them anymore. It's kind of like, but like you asked, like you wanted this, and like like your organization made it happen. So some of a bit of perception, right or wrong, that it's kind of like you want out of a situation that you created, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was gonna say the exact same thing that you mentioned. That it's always funny how a superstar player, like a mega superstar player, as James Harden is, has so much control, right? I mean, you like that's a good thing. Player control is like that's never a bad thing. That's always a good thing. Player first, players over players over organization. But if you're gonna be a kind of the type of superstar that has that kind of control, like a James Harden or like a LeBron or whatever, then when all fails, you can't be like, well, that's on y'all. You know what I mean? If all fails, you gotta be like, you gotta take some responsibility in that too, though.
All right, hear me out on this one. I think James Harden almost wants to leave because all of his front office friends are gone. Mike D'Antoni was the coach that literally was just like, you go do you.
He loved James Harden. Yeah, the relationship was dope.
Do what you want. You run the show. Like even when Kevin McHale was there, yeah, James Harden was getting buckets and whatnot, but
It was a different level. Yeah.
it's a completely different show. And then Daryl Morey leaves. So the person who you can kind of have
The guy who went to Philadelphia.
yeah,
Okay.
Daryl Morey leaves, and if that's supposed to be like the GM who's going to give you the opportunities to go get your Chris Paul, go get your Westbrook, you don't got that no more. And I don't think their coach Silas, he don't really play games like that. Yeah, because he was with Dallas last year. Well, he's been with Dallas for like years, but that whole like Dallas coaching staff.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna be able to play around like that. And I think like Harden sees the writing on the wall, like you guys are saying. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go somewhere else because you about to have me doing something that I don't want to do.
Okay. I mean that makes sense. Sense.
You know that roster. Have you seen their roster? Their roster looks completely different. I have no idea how it's gonna
The Rockets roster was. I saw it. I mean, I saw I saw a little bit of the first pregame for the Rockets, and it doesn't look like the Rockets. I will say that.
Yeah.
Like, but at this point, we're so used to the Rockets looking a certain way that I don't know. Like, it just it's obviously the Rockets, but it is not set up the way we're used to the Rockets setting up. Even though DeMarcus Cousins still chucking up threes, but I mean, even though it still has Harden, who's supposedly supposed to play Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then it has Peter Tucker. And it has, some of the core guys. But, I mean, John Wall and Marcus Cousins by themselves makes that whole entire roster look completely different all alone. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because, granted, Westbrook was only there for a year.
Yeah.
Literally a year. He came in, they tripped into the Wizards. Which, honestly, the Wizards don't have a bad team. At all. And they're in the East. They might make the playoffs.
I think
they might have some defensive questions though.
Say it again?
I said they might have some defensive questions though, because neither Burtons or Hashimura are exactly prolific defenders. I like Hashimura, but he's just not good right now.
Definitely had defensive questions. First round out, but playoffs.
That's fair.
I'm not saying they're going to be successful in any way, but they might be like an 8-7 seed.
Yeah. I almost think they might be able to get that 6.
I mean, they probably will. Because, I think Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, that's going to end up being a really entertaining and legitimately good, efficient. Russell Westbrook's not going to be efficient, but good, fun, a good, fun watching backcourt. And in the East, it's easy to get into the playoffs. Let's be honest. Yeah. So, I feel even a little bit over 500, they'll get into the playoffs.
Gotcha. I agree with you on that. But I see that you two were about to have this conversation.